Hello and welcome to the after party. I'm No Wine Guilt, and with me is the Great Order. The Honors Roll Call highlights and celebrates those who have conscientiously committed to monthly gifts in my work for White Wellbeing, and appearing on the All-Stars portion of the Honors Roll Call today are Mrs. Jess Horst and Laura. And those remaining on the Honors Roll Call are Albertus, Ashley, Bridge Burner Bear, Saibon, Dainty Brighton, Dr. Jellyfingers, Elaine Sabatino, Euphemia, Fornull, Greg G and Greg M, Inquipper, Jacqueline, Jason and Darcy, Jim and John G, John Normie, Johnny and Johnny J, Miss Rosamond, Omar, Promethean Epoch, Richard J, Robert, Ron Ronson, Rujesh and Ryan, Sammy, Starshine Girl, St. McFreeman and Thomas and Trent, Gregory, Wayne, Evillian, and Arvan Diggle. In these worsening conditions across the West, I am more grateful to you all than you could ever know. In fact, right now, 5 minutes from where I live, the anti-white destroyers are gathering and beginning to prepare to destroy. The law enforcement is everywhere in plain sight and undercover. So I deeply appreciate all that you do to support my work for White Wellbeing. Folks, please be sure to thank these people if you are not one of them. And if you are on Twitter, please follow all of our mods that are on this channel, as well as HB 2014. You should do so right away. And in fact, if you are on any of the other platforms that our mods would like to share of themselves, please follow them there as well, which of course would include Gab. Mods, please provide your Twitter or Gab links, as well as any mods who are not present. I thank you all for that, and I thank you all for following them so we can continue to knit this community together for White Wellbeing as tightly as we can. We will need this to survive the cyclical upheaval that is going to get worse and occur more often. As for the crown winner of last week, the crown goes to JC Stalling for gifting a total of 50 Bring On Prometheus Rising dollars. I thank you warmly and warm congratulations. In second place was a tie, Ohesian Outlaw and Goodness Greatness, both gifting $25. Congratulations and thank you both as well. Financially gift on Entropy at 15%, where you can also watch the stream and ask and vote on questions or comments. And you can also financially gift on Cash App at 6%. Jared and I evenly share the financial gifts with our guests here on the after party. Now today, on tap, we have one of our most committed and laudable heroes, Traditional Mike. I'm going to give Mike a moment to introduce himself, what he does, and where you can find him. And then Mr. Jared George is going to take us into today's show. Mike.
Thank you, Jason. And hello to everyone. Indeed, I have been here before. It is a great pleasure to be back with both of you gentlemen. I can be found on socials under the same name, and I do a lot of work, particularly involving South Africa. This came about because of a particular story involving a 9-year-old little girl that I found out about a couple of years ago, Kayla, and I've been doing that pretty much ever since. From my little corner of Australia.
Yeah, for anyone interested or watching in replay, Mike's been on twice. February of last year, of 2019, we got into his story, Kayla Meyer, and what got him started, the little girl that he just mentioned. And then he was on with Boer Republic about 1 year ago, because unfortunately, that was following an incident that we're going to be speaking about today. And that would be the murder of Annette Kennelly, an activist in South Africa. and someone who was aware to some degree of our community here. We know that she'd posted a picture actually of Jason's book, Born Guilty, on her Facebook just about a month prior to her murder, a little more than a year ago now. So tonight is about her. We've heard a bit from her family, who are aware of what we're doing and have our support. And of course, they are in touch with Mike, and maybe Mike can speak about that a little bit too, because of all the advocacy he does from his native Australia for the people in South Africa. So we'll get to some of the bigger picture stuff. And obviously, given what's going on right now in much of the West, certainly in the United States, as we broadcast in early June 2020, relevant topics, unfortunately, to be reflecting on right now. But Mike, why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about, we'll start with some background of Annette, what her story is, her activism, what she was doing in South Africa, what her life was like there.
Certainly, sir. Thank you very much. For starters, I met her on Twitter through my activism. We became associated on there as a lot of people have sort of become aware of what I'm doing. They sort of contact me, and we made contact and we chatted a few times. And it wasn't until well, I'll explain that bit in a little while. But she was a counsellor to start with in her local province for a good number of years. She was a public servant, and but more specifically, she had noticed the trends that a lot of us have seen, and she was utilizing her social platforms to speak out in regards to those issues. And this was evident on her Facebook and her Twitter especially. And she, as you alluded to, she did in fact post a shot of the book, Jason's book, and she and I found that actually just after her passing, and I passed it on to you gents. And yeah, she was very, very vocal in her work against what's been happening over there, because it's horrific what's been going on. And regretfully, at the end of the story, she became a victim of the things she was fighting against, realistically. It was obviously I'm in contact with some people over there who report these kinds of things, and I saw a report that something had happened, and so I retweeted it, shared it onto others, and that was at the beginning of my day here in Australia. And then by about lunchtime-ish, just thereafter, some more details came through as to the case, and then I realized who it was, and it was upsetting, because it's the first person that I have met since starting this work who's become a victim of it. Obviously, Kayla passed before I even found anything out about this stuff, so... And then I found out it was Annette, and then, yeah, it was quite upsetting. And then from that, I was already following her mum on Twitter, and it was since Annette's passing that I have spoken extensively with her mother, as you gentlemen now have as well, and she's given her blessing for this, and she's also another advocate for the same cause. But she has to be obviously very, as a lot of these people do, have to be very careful as to what platforms they're on and what they do say, because of the situation.
Are you able to speak a little bit more to Annette's activism, what that was like, what she was up to exactly?
Yeah, she was very passionate for the activism. She spoke about the farm murders, obviously, and the situation there. But she, as I said, she was a counsellor in her local province, or whatever they call them there, local council, which gave her a legal insight that a lot of average punters, so to speak, don't have. So that gave her a certain ability to push that point, as opposed to just going, oh, this land taking without compensation is happening. She could actually say it's illegal because of this, or they're trying to do this legislation which is in contravenes this other legislation, or something to that effect. So because of that legality standpoint, because she had the experience as a municipal council, or whatever the term is there, that she was able to use that to give a greater understanding as to the more average person as to what's going on, as opposed to them just sort of retweeting a thing that just says, oh, this bad thing's happening. Well, this is happening because of X, Y, Z. And that gave a greater clarity in her activism that a lot of us don't have, because we're not on the ground there. We're not, don't have access to, it would be, for example, like myself tweeting about something in America without knowing your laws, or the specific laws of, say, Tennessee, or whichever state it might be, Connecticut or something. So she had that extra bit of insight into her activism, which gave it a great deal more power in what she did.
Do you know if she represented any cases or anyone in her time related to her activism? Did they cross over, or was it more, like you said, more of a just knowledge sharing kind of capacity?
I'm not sure if she did any legal representation. It never came up in conversations that we had, and obviously being potential legal cases, there probably might be some kind of confidentiality, or some kind of something protecting the case. So, especially giving some of the sensitive nature of what the cases might have been.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything you can remember off the top of your head that you learned more about South Africa and their situation from Annette? And you've got greater clarity specifically with the legalities.
Yes, it gave me. She certainly gave me a greater insight into the economic policy of the government over there, the empowerment policy that they have in place to actively help certain people while actively disadvantaging other groups, other minority groups. I was aware of that policy, obviously, as a lot of us are, but she gave me a greater insight as to the inner workings of it, I guess you could say. That gave me a greater knowledge of it. So when I speak about it, I can do so with a little more knowledge and a little more informity and a little more courage, I suppose. That I know I'm talking about this thing with a great deal of ability to know what I'm speaking about. And also she gave me a greater insight as to the attacks on the murders too. More along the lines there of the information. We get the facts and the figures, obviously. We know there's a person that's happened here or a thing that's happened there, but she gave me a greater insight as to some of the procedural things that occur after, as a case is unfolding. Involving not specific case information, obviously, but just a generalized, this is the kind of thing that they do when they get a call about a case. And obviously we also have groups of farmers who are protecting themselves as well. They have set up their own little small security groups, so to speak, that are literally on call as soon as someone hits an alarm or someone makes a call to a particular number in different regions. Then they rock up to try and help the person that's being attacked.
Did it give you any appreciation of how laws themselves can only go so far, and it's about the people who have power, the people interpreting the laws, that nothing is set in stone for all time? It's something we talk a lot about here, that laws are just one recipe in a nation's life, and well, a nation is really a people, but I guess the codified, state that contains a people, that's the home of a people. Something that Jason particularly likes to articulate a lot is that the laws are only as good as the people interpreting them. Any insights about that, or reflections from what you learned or observed in South Africa?
Very much so. Obviously, having a set of laws that govern a country or a people are one thing. I mean, you have laws there entrenched in stone or whatever the case might be, but then you have different interpretations of them depending on a perspective that an individual might hold, to put it that way. As to those particular set of laws and guidelines that govern a people or a race, it's a case of a person can interpret a law in a certain way that could be advantageous towards some and not towards others, or put lives in danger, as we are seeing over in SA. Literally, some people in the rural sections are, going to bed at night, and who knows what might happen. I mean, some of the attacks are not even at night time. I think Annette's might have been during the day, if I remember rightly. Well, Kayla's was at night, but I don't remember the specifics. But some of them are early morning. I mean, and some of the victims. I mean, Annette was in her early 50s. Some of the victims are I don't know about you, gents, but my dad's pushing 80 now, and some of the victims are that age, who have lived and worked on these farms their entire life and have given so much to the community and the country as a whole as a farmer, and find themselves in a situation of fighting for their life in some cases, because some of the victims obviously do recover, some of them obviously don't. So,
what about the aftermath after Annette's murder last year, the reverberations among the activists you knew in South Africa?
There was obviously a great period of mourning. Annette was loved by so many people. She was just a person who had such a wonderful spirit about her. She meant no harm to anybody. She was the most wonderful, kindest person you would ever have the opportunity to meet, and I certainly got that impression from her speaking a few times on social media. I mean, obviously, I never did a video call with her or met her in person, obviously, and it certainly knocked the community of us who have the activism for South Africa in the gut, because she was so strong in the activism, but she was just such a nice, beautiful person who never meant any harm to anyone, and to see someone like her fall was a blow. I stepped away for a few days when I realized it was her, and just stepped back from doing activism for a couple of days, just to sort of reflect and just to recenter myself, because it hurt. It hurt us all.
Do you know anything more about the fact, as we said, that she posted Jason's book, Born Guilty? If she owned it, or do you know anything about that, or maybe she was just sharing the image?
I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, she shared the image. I'm not sure if she actually owned a copy of the book. I would like to think maybe she owned an electronic copy, because obviously a physical copy would be a bit hard to post to South Africa. I've tried posting stuff there myself, and have been told, "Oh, we are posting there at the moment," so it's not a regular place you can post things to. So she may have bought the electronic version. I'm not sure, but she certainly obviously appreciated your work, Jason, and obviously shared the book to help promote it, as we've all done. So
yeah, and please finish your sentence, brother.
Thank you. But obviously, she was certainly an advocate for our work. as we all know, because she felt that she had a voice, and as we all do, and that she used that voice effectively to try to communicate our cause, and in doing so, she shared your book. So it was very lovely to see. I mean, as I said earlier in the stream, I didn't see that she'd posted the image of the book until after her passing, and I was like, it was a nice moment to see that she had done that.
It's very touching. She was, from from everything we learned from you, brother, and from what I've learned from her mother, she was an absolutely just beautiful soul. She was beautiful as beautiful on the inside as she was on the outside. And what a tragedy it was to lose such a lady who was bringing, in the ways that she knew how, a hope of a future where we don't have to worry about being slaughtered, where we're not the ne'er-do-wells in a narrative that is foisted on us, and we have to live as though we're like in these shackles, and it's getting worse and worse. And she was one of these people who, in the midst of the terror, in the midst of the horror, a white woman, standing up and trying to help. What a just glorious thing. How many men out there? I put the challenge to all of the men out there. How many men out there have the bravery to do that? What Annette was able to do with her life, and what a beautiful purpose she gave her life, and made it far more meaningful with the work she was doing, even though she passed far too early. It is so regrettable that she didn't come to White Wellbeing years earlier, and that's on me, and that should be on all of us, because we have the answers here. And maybe if she would have been in our community earlier, she would have had a better understanding of her world, her environment, what's motivating the anti-whites, and she may have been able to take steps that would have preserved her. And that sort of thing haunts me. And everyone out there of good character, I imagine that it's haunting you too. We have an opportunity, and it's so sad that far too many of our people across the West have heard about the things taking place to our people in South Africa and other places around the world. And they said, well, it's not happening where I am. It's tragic. Maybe most of our people, they don't even give a tweet about it. They don't even, they don't talk about it with their friends or family. In fact, living under the anti-white narrative, they're so concerned that if they show any care for white people, that they know what will become of them. They will be socially lynched. They will be condemned as immoral for caring about our brothers and sisters. They didn't muster up the courage. Annette was living in a place where people are ritualistically murdered, and horrible things beyond conversation. And there are people across the West in wonderful environments, safe environments, all the electricity and clean water and safety that they could possibly ask for. And they didn't speak up. They wouldn't speak up because they were afraid that they'll be called an anti-white slur. Somebody might think bad of them. And of course, we're here, myself, Traditional Mike, Jared George, we're here trying to tell everybody, look, first of all, the moral thing to do is to tell the world about what's happening here, is to tell the world that our people, our brothers and sisters are suffering in South Africa. That's the moral thing to do. But then there is the selfish thing that even the selfish can't act upon because they're too cowardly. And that is that if the anti-white narrative is allowed to come to fruition in South Africa, it will be allowed to come to fruition in London, in DC, in Miami, all across the West. It can come to fruition in Sydney. It can come to fruition. And so we need to be spreading this remedy, this curative contagion, as rapidly as we can. And let's let a absolutely sterling figure, a great example of not all angels have wings, somebody like Annette, who was doing this work as best as she could, armed with what she had. Let her memory drive you to make sure that there aren't any more Annettes out there. There aren't any more of our brothers or sisters or daughters and sons, fathers and mothers that end up being murdered because we didn't get to them quickly enough with going free, with service to white well-being. We didn't spread this quickly enough because we were too busy worrying about ourselves, too busy worrying about whether or not we might get called an anti-white slur. If you fear the smear, there's going to be a lot worse to fear in the near future. And as I said at the beginning of the show, we have the 5 minutes from my house the destroyers, the anti-white destroyers have shown up, and the police are out, marked and undercover everywhere, and military is about, moving around. So this is how it's going to get worse. And I'm going to ask you all, if you haven't already shared the URL for this show, I'm going to ask you to ask yourself, don't answer to me. Ask yourself, why haven't you shared the URL where you have the ability to do so? Why haven't every one of you had your Twitter or your Gab or whatever it is where you can post URLs? Why haven't you lit that up with the URL for today's show? Are you afraid you might be called a name? Are you afraid you might get threatened? Annette lived her life with the knowledge that she might get slaughtered. And now you're going to have to live your lives with the knowledge and the fear that you might be slaughtered in many places because you chose to be silent. So we should, whatever number we have right now, you should be able to tack about 7 zeros onto it. That's how many people we should have watching this, given that America is on fire, given that the capital of this country is right now being inundated with anti-white destroyers from across the country, and some reportedly flown in from other places around the world. So we're remembering Annette, and we need to remember her in two ways: for the woman she was and the work that she was doing with courage that rivals and actually is greater than most of the white males in the West today. We need to also remember great heroes like Mike, and we've talked about this before, and I've said on several shows that if you want to know what a great hero, a modern hero for Western kind looks like, it's traditional Mike. This guy just keeps plugging away day after day, bringing the world the news. There are others out there who are also bringing the world the news about what's taking place in South Africa. And Mike's doing this. He's giving voice to the slain. He gave voice to so many already, and regrettably will have to give voice to many more in the future. But this is what a hero looks like. He's spreading the truth. He is active in making our people aware. He's going free. We also have to remember, when we remember Annette, that our actions or lack thereof have consequences. And there are, this very moment, it's not a theoretical thing. This is not some philosophaster talking here. There is a woman right now. There is a man right now. There is a boy. There is a girl right now, this very second, who needs to hear the message of going free. Because if they don't, they're going to end up dead. They're going to end up worse than dead, wishing they were dead. So I cannot salute Mike enough. And I hope that my adulation infuses all of you, so that you know who to look up to, so that you know what kind of character and what kind of actions are lauded. It's these kinds of characters, these kinds of actions. So we can't say enough. Let me ask you this, Mike. If Annette, now this is you're going to be thinking for her, thinking in her spirit what you knew of her. if she hadn't had been taken from us by anti-whites, what would her message to us be? What would she like for us to be doing? What would she like for us to achieve? What kind of passion or love do you think that she would like us to feel? And I guess that's speaking to the kind of passion and love that she felt. So please, the floor is yours, brother.
Thank you, sir, and thank you very much for your very kind words. Before I answer your immediate question, as you were speaking, then I was reminded of a quote that's been with me for 20 plus years of my life, and that quote is, "We have to create the future, or others will do it for us."
Yeah.
In regards to your question with Annette, I think that her message would have been to continue to speak out against the situation in South Africa specifically, obviously. While you were speaking, I actually went and pulled up her Facebook account, and literally the day before she was slain, she posted about farm murders, literally the day before. Her message would be that we have to continue in our efforts to come together and to unite as well, because one individual can only do so much, and it's true with anything. We have to be networked, because one voice speaking out can achieve so much, but 5 voices can reach more people, 10 voices can reach even more people, and you have to be united in what you do. But one of her strongest messages was her appreciation for she loved life. She loved life so much. She loved living life so much, and that came through in everything that Annette did. And I think that she would want us to live the life that we would want to live, in the world that we want to live in, and not just accept whatever is handed to us, and to keep striving forward in what we do, because, as I said, she was working on her activism and being a voice for her people in South Africa right until the very end. And I think that we should all take that as our mantle, and we should all do that as well. We should keep moving forward and keep working until the end, whenever that is. Hopefully a very long time from now, but she wouldn't have seen it coming. I mean, Annette was trained in the art of defending herself as well. I'm not going to speak specifically on the case, obviously, because I think it is actually still before a court. I'm not sure. But from the report that I have seen, I think even her mother might have shared it with me, the attacker may have been known to Annette. It may have been someone that she was aware of and possibly even familiar with. So, and it was in her own home, obviously, that it did occur. But she would want us to keep pushing forward and keep striving to build the world that she was trying to build, and the world that we are all trying to build. I think that her mother would probably feel the same way, because she is just like her daughter in that regard, and that they're both very strong activists for our people. She's expressed that on many occasions. She's retweeted you, Jason, on a number of occasions that I've seen, and Jared as well. So she's that they were both very strong activists for our people, and it was a sad tragedy to learn that Annette did die. But we should carry on in her memory. We can't let her voice be silenced. We need to make sure she's remembered, and her work can carry on as best as it possibly can in honor of her.
Yeah, when you say she loved life, anyone who looks up the pictures I shared one accompanying this stream yesterday when I was promoting this. But if you go look up the pictures of Annette, just that smile, a picture's worth 1,000 words. There is a buoyant love of life that is apparent, that just shines through. And there was a certain recognition and kinship, even just seeing those pictures, Mike, when you first shared the story about her about 1 year ago, and I became aware of her, and then we did the show. So yeah, she had a wonderful spirit, and it just absolutely shows in those photos. And I put my camera back on, and it looks like I still have an issue, so I'm gonna remain off screen. But the tech is being worked on within a few weeks. Should have some better equipment. I know this has been happening a little bit, but I will remain behind the avatar for the time being, at least. On the continuing on what we're speaking about, and in the spirit of Jason's question and what you were just saying, Mike, before we move on to other things, a little more broad picture, anything else you'd like to add about how Annette's legacy is being continued by those who knew her, by her family, things in her name? I mean, of course, I know, I'm sure everyone is just plowing on, and like we all are, putting one foot in front of the other, continuing to do the work we're doing. That's the best way to honor her. But if there's anything specific that is worth sharing, of course, we'd like to hear about that.
I think a lot of it is just plowing on, making sure that what she was doing and what we're doing continues. Obviously, when it was a few weeks ago now, obviously, that the 1 year came up for Annette's murder. We obviously did a couple of years, well, a little while ago, when Kayla's birthday, I think it was, came up. I did a thing and then asked others to do it with me, and they did. In the case of Annette, I changed a profile picture on Twitter or something and made a post, and then all of a sudden, without even me having to ask, all these other profile pictures started changing, and people were copying the cover photo that I have, which is memorial of Annette, and that was being added to their profiles, and then it was beautiful. Everyone in the activism community on Twitter for South Africa were just all honouring Annette's memory. I spoke with her mother around that time, and she had noticed it as well, and she was profoundly moved by it. That all these people, who most of which didn't know Annette that well, we obviously knew of her, and some of us had spoken with her, but people she wouldn't have even met were doing the same thing, and it was beautiful. This lovely lady who, as you said, her smile was infectious. She loved life to its fullest, and people were remembering her in such a beautiful way. It was absolutely lovely.
Well, why don't we transition then to your general work about South Africa? Again, for anyone listening now or in replay, this is the third time that Traditional Mike has been on tap. We did an initial interview with him back in February of last year, of 2019, so you could get some of his backstory. And he was also on War Republic about a year ago, celebrating, we're celebrating Annette's life now. I don't think we would use the word celebrating when it was a year ago. It was right in the wake of her death. But, of course, things evolve. It's been about a year since you were on, and we have a lot of new people as well. So we would, of course, like to give you some time to talk about, and again, against the backdrop of what's going on now, it puts a lot into perspective, but how a gentleman like you over in Australia came to be an advocate for South Africa. We'll begin with that. If you can just give the folks, paint a little bit of a picture about what called to you about this and what you do.
Certainly. Excuse me. It was the beginning of 2018. There had been some rumblings here in Australia about something that had been going on in South Africa. A friend of mine, or a friend of ours, I was doing some work with her, and she, involving her backing up of some of her work, and one of her video she did was on the situation involving South Africa. I obviously watched the video as I copied it, but I was just doing a job at the time there. But our Home Affairs and Immigration Ministry here at the time started making some noise at the beginning of 2018 regarding this, and I was curious because when a senior federal politician says something, then there must be some basis in fact. One would hope. I mean, it is a politician. And I looked into it and found out some of the facts and some of the truth about what was going on there. And I had the Twitter account sitting there that I used occasionally for some other work, and I started making a few tweets about it, and that garnered me some attention from South Africa, as one would expect it would do. And there was one particular lady who I've met over there, who I'm very good friends with, who lives more toward the west side of the country. She had a profile picture of a little girl with a silhouette of the South African flag turned sideways, not the normal way, but that way. And that, for whatever reason, I cannot answer why, caught my attention. So I went to her profile, loaded up her profile, and it had new profile picture with that image and a link, excuse me, to an article or to a news story. So I clicked on that, and it was the story of Kayla and what happened to her. And to say that my world exploded would be an understatement. When I found that story, I was absolutely heartbroken, especially what happened to that little girl. And she was never given a chance to enjoy. She never had the chance to see an ocean. She never saw the sea, which I'm assuming is something that a lot of us have done in this audience today. Excuse me. My apologies. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
And we so from there I made the decision that this little girl needed a voice. So I originally, as Jason's mentioned a couple of times, I put a post up on Gab. That got a couple of hundred reactions. And from there, I thought, well, that's nice. It was a post, but a post will fade with time. Other things will overtake it in news feeds. So then I went over to Facebook and created a Facebook page in memory of little Kayla, and did a little bit of promotion on it, and it absolutely went crazy. I think the pinned post, which was the post about the actual event of what happened on the morning of March 10th, 2016, I think has now had about 700,000 reactions. And the page is sitting at quite a number of likes, and it just went absolutely crazy. And from there, I just stepped forward and just continued the work. And as more incidents of attacks and murders and other things came up involving the land expropriation without compensation and other issues like that, the work just kept going from there. And it was through the Facebook page that I set up for Kayla that I got in contact with some of her extended family, should we say, who obviously weren't the immediate family because they obviously all were taken that night. And I've become very, very close friends with them, and formed a really strong relationship with them. In fact, they are expecting themselves, their first, and I believe that they're making me the godfather of that child.
That's beautiful.
So that's basically, thank you. That's basically where it all started, just over 2 years ago, and it continues to this day.
Is there anything currently going on in South Africa? We've, Jason and I certainly check in every so often with different guests about this. The most recent Jason would have been conservative Texas chick. I spoke to her a couple of months ago, and She knows you and said a lot of great things about you, Mike. And of course, anyone listening, recommend who is not South African herself. She is.
Lost you, Jared. Can't hear your audio. Are you still there? You might have to log out and log back in.
In any case, we'll
that there are some of us who understand right now news, or anything like people about kind of the lay of the land and where things are there right now.
Yes, Conservative Texas Chick is certainly a very good friend of mine, and I speak very highly of her as well. She's a massively strong advocate for South Africa. She's done a lot of amazing work, and I was very, very pleased to see that she was with you chaps a little while ago. Mm-hmm. One of the things that's really going on at the moment, obviously the farm murders and farm attacks are still continuing, and there's a lot of the stuff in the background there. Oh, I'm the only camera now.
No, I'm back. I'm here.
Is obviously with everything going on with COVID. Mm-hmm. There are a number of things that's been happening in relation to that. There was a lady who I've been in contact with who was put into a quarantine camp. I use that term very loosely because it was extremely substandard in its conditions. An advocacy group for South Africa came to bat for the people in that camp and got that sorted out. But there's, I think, from what I understand, 500 plus people stuck in Mozambique who can't come back into the country. I mean, I don't know what the situation is with you chaps, but if you move around Australia at the moment, you have, I mean, my state border is completely sealed. You can't come in unless it's essential travel. Mm-hmm. But it's a 14-day quarantine period. You have to self-isolate for 14 days. There's two children. One is aged 11, one is aged 7, who are in Mozambique. They are with their grandparents, so they are safe, who haven't seen their mother now for about 77 days.
Oh my God.
Who lives in South Africa because they can't come home. I mean, as I stressed, they are with family, so they are safe. But they haven't seen their parents for probably close to 80 days now.
Golly.
The reasoning is beyond my knowledge. I won't comment on it because I wouldn't want to say anything not factual on the show, of course. But things like that are happening over there. I mean, obviously we're in a situation globally which is unparalleled, and situations are very difficult. But 80 days without seeing your preteen kids must be absolutely devastating for them. I mean, I'm not a father myself, but I can certainly put myself in their shoes.
Yeah, and this is something that is so despicable and predictable. And we talk about everything in Go Free, and thank all of you wonderful people who are here. I just glanced up and I'm seeing wonderful people like Marsha and Ezra St. White and Aunt Sally and Heather. So many wonderful, and of course the great sea god Poseidon is here. So wonderful to see you all. Carlisle is here. Wonderful to see you. And Ambriel, a lot of wonderful folks. JK160. So we're building that community. But this is one of the things that I think we need to share when we're trying to bring people over to help them to go free, is that we need to share that when these anti-white regimes across Western civilization, all of these countries, and this is Mike is speaking directly to this, all of the countries in the West are dominated by anti-whites. That's evident by their behavior, evident by what they proclaim as moral and good, evident by what they move toward, evident by what they condemn and imprison and call immoral, etc. We see that when it comes to us, the laws and rules have a hyper application. They have to be followed no matter how painful for the individual, and no matter how painful for the family, no matter how painful and how destructive it could possibly be. No, they have to be followed to the letter of the law, the letter of the rule, the letter of whatever it is that they are applying, suddenly, whether it's something they are recalling from the past or something they've just written up in some document for, excuse me, something like COVID-19. And so we see that little white children can be separated from parents, families can be divided. We see just 1 week before the anti-white destroyers got into the streets across America, the anti-white regime in the media, in fact, all across the West, were showing images of white people at pools where they were more than 6 feet apart. Nobody wanted to get COVID-19. White people on beaches, white people at a park, white people running on a jogging trail, and everybody, keeping their distance and this sort of thing as best as humanly possible. And just this hyper condemnation, as though every act was the most just unjust, selfish, etc., immoral act, unethical act that a human being could possibly commit. And all of the imagery is of the white people going to the pool or the white people going to have a picnic. How dare they do these sorts of things? And then they flip immediately, and they flip, and it's not a contradiction of their objectives by any means. So you're not seeing any hypocrisy by any means from the anti-whites. They relish inflicting harm on Western kind and Western civilization, and harm is inflicted in a great many ways. And one of the ways is to speak ill about. One of the ways is to ritualistically slaughter. One of the ways is to deprive of your rights. There are many different ways that you can inflict harm. And we see the anti-whites doing it in every conceivable way. So when little white babies can be kept from their parents, the horror that is inflicted, lifelong horror in many cases, depending upon the age of the child and the memory of what takes place, that's fine. That's fine. But worries about COVID-19 and being selfish and immoral and unethical and all of that stuff is out of the window when you can have the malefactors, anti-white malefactor destroyers get into the streets and destroy civilization right out from underneath of us, erasing in our country, and we're seeing it everywhere. And it's the pace is going to be quickening everywhere, pulling the statues down, targeting the halls of records and history and setting those to fire, burning down historical sites, happening everywhere. They just ordered the Robert E. Lee statue to be taken down from Richmond, Virginia, and from this monument to avenue they have in Richmond, which is south of my location. So this is the absolute white erasure that we are seeing. Nothing matters. We have no value as people to the anti-white regime. That's why it's okay. That's why it's completely moral to do all of these sorts of things to us. And we need, in response, to be more like Mike. I mean, maybe this needs to be like a saying that we have, be more like Mike. We need to be selflessly dedicated day after day after day, serving white well-being, encouraging folks to use the dialectics and lexicon of Go Free, and doing it in a polite way, doing it in a kind way. We don't want to alienate. We want to bring people in. There are going to be a lot more of our brothers and sisters in all of our countries, Australia, South Africa, United States, UK. They're all going to be looking in and wondering what the heck is going on in the world? What can we do? Who's got the answers for it? Who are we going to want to be there for them when they come looking? Because their world is going to start looking a lot like South Africa did for the beautiful Annette, her daughters and her mother, and those that remember her down in that once great country that Western kind built out of nothing. Who is going to remember us? Who's going to be the mics for us if we don't get started today? Do you want to have your own traditional mic remembering you? Do you want to have your own traditional mic in Australia or some other country saying, I'd like to remember this person, they were slaughtered in Virginia, or they were slaughtered in the UK, or they were slaughtered, and I just want their memory to go on. Do you want to have that in your world? I mean, you'd be lucky to have somebody as glorious as Mike step up to the bat to carry on your memory, but you want to be able to live. And if you want to live, and if you want to make this world a safe place for all of our children in Western civilization, so that they can be the heroes in our story. If you want that, then you better be there for all of these conservatives, all of these folks from the white positive sphere that continue to get it wrong, all of these nationalists, all of these Christians, all of these Catholics, all of these people who are brothers and sisters, vagues out there, and white as the driven snow, and wondering what's going on in the world. How can we remedy this? And you have to be there. We have to be there to take their hands and say, look, there's a way to see this so that it all makes sense, so that you'll finally understand, and we can finally start working on a future for all of us in which we are safe, our community, our people, and therefore us as individuals are safe. We need to be there for them. And there are a lot of heroes out there doing it. And Roy is one of them. I've seen Roy recently. And who was the other one? Gosh, I need to start writing everybody's names down that I catch in the midst of trying to bring Going Free to other people, because it's truly magnificent to see the love that's out there. Instead of this, I mean, we see the destruction going on. Remember, folks, these are not rioters and these are not looters. That diminishes what they are. They're destroyers of Western civilization. To see people now frantically turning around, and what are they doing? They're immediately resorting to all of these old slogans, all of these old cliches, all of these ugly things that do nothing but lose, all of these old vehicles that our people have used in the past that have done nothing but lose, all of these old childish ideas of raising another banner or another constitution that do nothing but lose. We need to be there with love. As Roy, as Mike, be like Mike, be more like Mike, be out there with love and receive these people with that love, help them to see the truth. And some of them are going to have blind sight, and so they'll be able to see it a little bit, and they'll be able to immediately follow you down the path, and they'll want to find out about Going Free. Others, it's going to be a shell shock. It's going to be because their whole world, they're living inside the anti-white narrative. And now we're saying, hey, take my hand. I'm going to pull you up out of the coffin. Take my hand. There's a whole nother way to see this world, a reality. No need to continue debating anti-whites on the data. I mean, we saw, what did the Washington Post just do? I'm just going to mention it briefly, and then I'm going to go to, and maybe first of all, I'll get what if Mike had anything to say in response to what I said, and then we'll get to your questions and your financial gifts on Cash App and Entropy. Thank you. But I'm just going to point out, for all of you out there that think, they want to stay in the anti-white narrative, maybe you're too proud. You've always used these really ugly slurs for different groups. You've always looked at this from some kind of an ugly perspective instead of love for our people. And you always have been in it, especially if you're a conservative. You've always been in this, I'm just going to pull the data out. I'm just going to show them the data because that's all that matters, right? Well, you look at what the Washington Post did. How many people do you talk to? You talk to a handful of people. The Washington Post talks to far more people than you do. And they are, of course, hand in hand with all of the other anti-white entities out there. And the Washington Post just published the data on this interracial crime and black males specifically that have been killed by police officers. Well, first of all, they immediately manipulated the data to just police officers in general, because of course there are going to be non-white police officers and they're killing non-white criminals. But then they expanded the definition of what it meant to be unarmed. So if you took the police officer's weapon from him, you are considered by the anti-whites at the Washington Post unarmed. If you are at the wheel and are able to drive this into and kill, as you can see right now all over the country with these anti-whites mowing over police with vehicles, you are considered by the anti-whites at the Washington Post to be unarmed. So the anti-whites are just pure lying, wretched scum. And they will absolutely torture data and redefine and recategorize, put under new rubrics, anything they have to arrive at an anti-white conclusion. And so what do we say when it comes to Going Free? One of the easiest ways to help people and to defend yourself is to say to your interlocutor, whether it's somebody you're trying to persuade or an anti-white or whatever it is, that look, I don't care what your excuses are. If you end up at an anti-white conclusion, I reject it. And then you are forcing them to come to a conclusion that isn't anti-white. You're forcing them to acknowledge that their conclusion is anti-white. Just say this every time. You don't have to memorize all the different MPs and MCs. If you can do nothing else, you can memorize that one sentence. If you come to an anti-white conclusion, I reject it. Force the anti-white to show him or herself. So we have to get out and we have to help our brothers and sisters the way Mike has done and is doing, with love and compassion, giving voice to our fallen, giving voice to these tragically slain by these monsters in South Africa. So take up your cause. Make it that you're going to bring 10 people over to Going Free over the course of this destruction being waged in the United States. Make it a mission that you're going to introduce it to 10 people or 20 people or whatever it might be. You're going to have that conversation with them because it might be the conversation that saves their life. Mike, do you have anything you'd like to add before I look at the financial gifts and the other questions we might have?
Thank you, Jason. The only thing I would raise in regards to that is a little while ago, a few weeks ago now, there was a peaceful demonstration in Sydney in regards to the restrictions that have been imposed upon in regards to the COVID situation. People were well behaved, they were keeping distance, all those other things. And there was one particular individual, a lady there, and her 4-year-old son was also present, and the police actively separated her from the group and targeted her and made her into a a scapegoat, if you will, and arrested her and her son. And from my understanding, they interrogated her son without her consent or without her being present. Which,
my God,
there is some things on my Twitter feed that can be found in regards to that issue, but that's the kind of world we live in. But you can have a peaceful. I mean, a couple of years ago, as we were speaking earlier about the beginnings of my work with South Africa, not long after as I said, there was a federal push to help the farmers. We did have some gatherings nationwide. We had several thousand people in my home city, and I was present at that rally. Everything was peaceful. Everything was fine. There was not a single problem. Thousands of people gathered in one place, predominantly of our people, and because obviously a lot of expat South Africans do live here, and completely peaceful. There was not police were present, but we marched around a couple of streets of the city. There was some speeches given, and we all went home and probably had dinner or something. I don't remember, but it was completely peaceful. There was no rioting, there was no looting, there was no property destruction whatsoever. The city looked just as good when we left as when we arrived.
Well, that's obviously indicative of the real spirit that is inside of us, the spirit of the West that wants to, which is, ladies and gentlemen, and this is another thing. I know when you all are really working on going free yourselves, because when you all begin your conversations with others, and I see this, and you immediately go to these old tired tropes, these old tired mechanisms of like just pointing out the hypocrisy or something like this. I see that, and I see when you all then, when you catch yourselves, and then you say, "Hold on, I'm not just going to leave it there. I'm going to actually point out what's really going on here." And Mike is pointing out that we have a biospirit right now. He's pointing this out, that we have a biospirit that is different, no better, no worse, because there is no intergalactic yardstick to measure it than the other races of man. And yet it is what we prefer. We prefer Western civilization. We prefer to redress problems in our society in a peaceful way, because that is an instinct in us that enables us to create Western civilization. It's not the IQ that is the big difference between the races of man. It's that biospirit. It's that instinct that really makes us different. And it is now, on show in our streets in the United States. There will always be an excuse, ladies and gentlemen. There will always be, there always has been. Do you think they didn't have excuses to burn down cities and barrios and towns in other countries of the world where these other peoples have come from? Do you think they don't? They always have an excuse, and they always will have an excuse. And if you will accept their excuse, then you are going to suffer all the ramifications of that stupidity and short-sightedness. So we are seeing the biospirit of other peoples and that self-hatred of our own kind that are out there, anti-whites, on display right now. And they're, as I say, whatever the excuse is today, they'll have another one tomorrow, and another one the next day, and another one the next day. So I appreciate you bringing that up, the parallel there, Mike. Let me see. Do we have Mr. George's microphone working?
Yes.
Okay.
No. Oh, let me try the camera. I had the cap on it. Woo.
Oh, there we go.
All right. As the colors adjust. All right. We're back in business. And like I said, folks, new tech soon. So shouldn't happen much anymore, but I was listening to most of that, and very well said, gentlemen. Do we have any questions from the chat?
We do indeed. And let me, as I have my head this way before I swivel it around, I will begin the refresh. And I will swivel back this way, and we have over here on Entropy, Rum, my dear lady, thank you so much for a financial gift of $10. And thank you for being here, a stalwart participant in service to white well-being. And ladies and gentlemen, you know, the more and greater you serve, the more and greater you come in touch with the spirit of the West, and the more likely it is to bequeath onto you powers that you heretofore had not even realized you had. Rum, financially gifting $10 and writes, thanks to all three of you for your hard work in and for the white community. Eternally grateful. Rest in peace, Annette Kennelly. Indeed, thank you very much, dear lady, for those kind words. And we had, of course, Roy Danton with a $5 financial gift, making sure that Entropy is working. Thank you for that. Again, my dear brother, double duty. We have the great Irish Ice. He is another great participant, always active in service to white well-being over here on Entropy, and financially gifting $5. Thank you, dear brother, and Promethean hails to you. I've been busy discouraging so many anti-white non-whites in my community. I engage them in polite conversation and quickly change the topic to all the negative they are responsible for. It's wonderful to see the guilt and shame come over them. Kip. The Kip as well, brother. And you must be doing something really, really profound, because certainly right now there are few people, or you're really coming across a lot of, I guess, noble non-white folks. And you've been really lucky that way, that would be willing to own up to the wrongdoing in their community. And
yeah, we want to hear a little from Irish Ice, more about what he's doing. Yeah, I wouldn't think those confessions would come very quickly, especially at a time like this.
Well, precisely, Mr. George. We also have Bartleby over here, financially gifting $25 to White Wellbeing. Thank you, my dear brother. Great participant. Finished your inspiring new book, Prometheus Rising, last night. My hat off to you, Jason. Looking forward to your next. It is wonderful to go free. Well, thank you so very much, Bartleby, for that testimony to Prometheus Rising and that kind contribution, comments as well, and that great financial gift. And we will continue to produce and make available more material that empowers our people. JK160 over here, financially gifting $10. Thank you, good sir. And writing, thank you for honoring Annette. She is an inspiration for our people. She is indeed. And I imagine, and thank you very much for writing that, JK160, and regular in the live chats during these shows. So it's great to see you. And it would be wonderful, and perhaps it has already even happened, that a brand new little white baby girl will have been named after Annette for the activism that she did on behalf of our people. And I hope we see some little brand new baby boys out there named Mike that will remember all of that Mike has done and honor him and his work for our people. We also have Kara Bassett with $10 financial gift. Thank you so very much as well. And writing, you are doing our people a great service. Please post schedule often. We'll do our best there. Thank you very much. We find that sometimes some folks wait until the last minute, and then that's really what they're interested in, is getting that alert at the last minute, and then they'll watch if they're free, and they won't if they're not, and they'll watch in replay. So a big hello to everybody in replay who is not here with us live.
Please do not live by the Twitter notifications.
Yes, we don't know.
We have to go past that.
They censor the heck out of us, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, please.
We're not going to be on Twitter forever. Sometimes we have to do it. YouTube. Sometimes we have to do this on backup channels. We post about 24 hours before on several social media accounts between Jason and I. You can always check the Tap TV site too for listings and watch there live.
Thank you for that, Jared. And over here on Cash App, we have another one of our heroes, participants, 41BMC, financially gifting $20. Thank you, dear sir. And writing, Promethean hails, good brothers. Well, Promethean hails to you as well. And thank you so much for that. I don't know if you all can tell, I took you won't be able to see in this view. Maybe on Sunday you'll be able to see. But I do have up the book's cover on the wall now, and it's a little smaller. But I also took a Prometheus creating the cosmos out of that frame, so that we wouldn't have that glare on it that we had before. So some of Groundhog Fury's magnificent work can be seen by the community a little bit more clearly. Over here on the question widget, we have Poseidon letting us know that for some, the embedded video on Entropy for this show is not working. I guess for some it is not, and some it is. So thank you for that, Poseidon. And we also have a Volkish Warrior over here on the question widget. Thank you both for posting over there. And writing, I was concerned for this stream, as I saw with my own eyes Way of the World stream get banned as soon as it started. They keep censoring us in these times of turmoil. I'll do my best to use the Tap TV. Well, thank you for that. You will particularly avoid Mr. George's ire if you just stay on the afterparty.tv and not try to find us these other places. Remember, Mr. George and I are like the promoters for concerts and bands and this sort of thing. And we promote in different, you can find us in the different locations. But if you're following us, you can't go wrong. But if you go to that same location again and again, that same stadium, that same nightclub or whatever it is, we may not be there anymore. The owner may have kicked us out, given the shifting sands under our feet, the work by the anti-whites. And we know that there may be some change to this. We know that finally Trump getting censored himself by Twitter. He wrote the executive order to allow people to I guess it's to repeal this immunity that these tech companies have, and so people could potentially sue. I'm looking forward to lawsuits moving forward and potentially then a drawing down of the censorship. We hope that it will also apply to us, especially since we don't break their anti-white rules, but we shall see. And we also have seen Trump declare, and we'll see whether this comes into fruition, whether or not Antifa will be treated as a terrorist organization, which of course it is. Its stated objective is the definition of terrorism. So it's actions and stated objectives, and how to achieve those objectives is the exact definition of terrorism. And we see, whether organized or not, depending upon the scale, we see that in all of our lives, this anti-white terrorism is it inflicts itself on all of our lives in one way or another. And for some right now, we spoke about this earlier, and it's important to circle back And that is that for some, it is the inconvenience of being called a smear, an anti-white slur. And for others, it is being butchered in your home. It is losing your life before you have the opportunity to even see the ocean. These are tragic things, and you need to get in touch with who and what we are so that you can feel the sorrow, you can feel the pain, and then you can act on that sorrow and pain inflicted on our people in a way that is truly noble, in a way that really makes a difference. For God's sakes, don't laud, don't cheer, don't applaud someone anymore, and call into question the characters of those who would applaud individuals who speak in the old tropes and who go down the old avenues that have only ever made us look like the demons in the anti-white narrative and lost for us everything that we have tried to do for the good for our people, and truly, therefore, for the totality of the world. The world is not going to be a nice place if Western kind succumbs to this and you have cities on fire regularly for any excuse under the sun. The world will not be a happy place. I don't see any more questions or comments at the moment, and I didn't see any in the live chat. But folks, as we're wrapping up here, if you have any, please let us know.
I did catch a question in the regular chat from Edward St. White earlier, who helped us celebrate the Prometheus Rising standalone launch last week. Please go watch that in the replay. It's a lot of fun and great to become more acquainted with Ezra. He had a question for you, Mike, just briefly. I know we've heard little things about this. I know we've discussed it, but I get different information. He was curious about this news we hear that Russia is doing some outreach and letting people from South Africa come there for safe haven. He just wanted some clarity about that. Any information you could share?
Yes, I have also seen some reports from various outlets that indicate that the Russian side of things have been open to the idea of supporting and bringing white South African farmers up to Russia to give them protection, give them some kind of safe haven. I don't know how far along that process is. I haven't looked at that. I need to look at that again, actually, myself. I am not fully informed in it. I apologize. But it was something in the works last year. There was some talk of it, but I don't know how far along it went. I do also know that some time ago, the president tweeted and instructed Secretary Pompeo to also look into the issues of the farm murders as well. But I haven't heard anything further beyond that initial tweet from President Trump.
Mike, are there any, I just have a quick question. Are there any messages or any thoughts you think that Annette's mother would like conveyed to the community, and anything going on that she would like to convey or others would like to convey from South Africa that you can share with us before we wrap up tonight?
I think Annette's mum's biggest message for us is just to keep striving forward. She's, as you gentlemen are both aware, a very strong advocate for white well-being herself, as we all are. And I know she would want for us to continue to push forward in our work and to help to preserve and protect our race, as she is herself doing as best as she can in the conditions she has to operate under, and also what Annette did in her beautiful life as well. I think that's very important.
Absolutely. Annette's mother, we love you. Her daughters, we love you. Your daughter, your mother, we appreciate her life. We appreciate everything that she did for white well-being, for our people, and we are never going to forget her. We want you to know that, and we thank you for having allowed all of us to have enjoyed your mother's strength and her beauty and tenacity for the time that she was able to give us. Thank you all so very much. And any final thoughts or questions, Mr. George? And then we'll let Mike tell us where folks can find him and what he'll be working on next.
No, why don't we hear from Mike?
All right, Mike, please.
So, sorry, chaps. Yes, as I said, I can be found at the social medias of Traditional Mike across many platforms. The thing I'm working on next is actually a book.
Oh,
as I
okay.
alluded to earlier, I was, and this is sort of a special announcement that hasn't been given anywhere. I am friends with Kayla's godparents, and they have given me their blessing to write her story.
Oh my gosh, that is fantastic! Wow.
So that's in the works and will be coming out.
Oh my, we were going to promote the hell out of that. That is fantastic. And thank you so much for sharing that here on Tab. Another Tab exclusive, Mr. George.
Yeah,
wow.
I just wrote in the chat.
Did you? Let's get a big round of raucous emoji applause, please, folks. Boy, that is exciting. Thank you so much for working on that. And thank you so much to the family for allowing you to do this. Gosh, Mike, what up? Please, I cut you off. Please continue.
No, that was pretty much the announcement I had to make.
Oh, fantastic! What great news! And where can folks find you, brother?
Twitter at Traditional Mike. It's mostly the platform I'm on.
Twitter at Traditional Mike, ladies and gentlemen. If you don't follow him, if you're live right now, please, and you're on Twitter, please head right over and click follow to follow Mike, our dear friend and hero in the white positive sphere. And if you're watching in replay, I expect you to click pause, jump right over to Twitter and follow. Please do that. We need to continue to knit this community together, and it'll make it easier. If the stronger we are knitted together, it'll make it easier for us to bring more people in, and the success will build upon the success. And before you know it, nobody will be talking in these old, tired, dead, and deleterious tropes. Mr. George, I think you're ready to hop on in here.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Well, yeah, another Tap exclusive. That is extremely exciting, Mike. Congrats. We look forward to that. We'll have to have you on when the book comes out. We're honored that a lot of people choose our platform to make these initial announcements. So we've had many book announcements this year. It's become kind of a theme. So you told us you had something, and that's a big one. So
yeah,
very much
that's a big
looking forward to that. And we know you'll do a great job because you have such a passion for it. It's a beautiful thing. So speaking of what Jason was just saying, all of Mike's links, all of our guest links will be on the posts, both on our respective sites, on my site and Jason's site, and are shared theafterparty.tv, which of course is where I don't want to get this reputation as being a scold. Wow. But that's where you can usually watch the show. But you can definitely check out all of the links of where the show is going to be. It's a cat and mouse thing in terms of YouTube. So we encourage the alt tech, but even the alt tech is not perfect. Full Moon Ancestry was on a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling us how he couldn't even get affiliate status on DLive. So DLive is not perfect, guys. It's the way the future is really going to be the embedded thing in our site. If you do that, please give us feedback how that is for you watching Entropy embedded right on our site. And even though that is linked to YouTube right now, it will be able to pull from other platforms in the future. So it's going to give us that nimbleness and flexibility. But in terms of the catalog, everything's there on the site. So please do go check it out. Of course, we have a lot of community-generated material as well. We had Jason's Friday night edition, the latest edition of Chuck Martell's Garage Party a little while ago, the Friday night music and arts show. And those are always cataloged on the site too. And speaking of which, another big announcement from the community is tonight For Null, very talented songwriter and music producer, of course, is celebrating his new album on DLive. Speaking of DLive, on his channel For Null, FORNULL. He has created a metal album. He has a track that he released where another member of our community, Luke Mason, Imminent Rain, they were both on the show last week, did lead guitar, some scorching lead guitar work, really talented. Album sounds great from what I've heard so far, but he's going to be doing his White Rock Hour 4-0 tonight on D Live and playing tracks from the album. The album's available now. I'm going to be tweeting it out. So please check that out too. My own site is thegreatorder.com. That's how you can find me and the different things that I do. And I'm working on music myself. So I know I've been saying that for a while, but I'm getting all the cylinders firing with that again. And it will be now getting sooner rather than later that I will be participating in that way as well. Excited about that. And we'll talk more about it when the time comes. But anyway, it's been great speaking with Traditional Mike and Jason. Why don't you take us out until next time?
I will. Thank you very much, sir. A big thank you to both you and Traditional Mike, both heroes in the white positive sphere, and both should be lauded to the stars. Let's make sure, everybody, that if you're not following either of these two wonderful gentlemen, that you do so ASAP, and that if you can support them in any way, pat on the back financially, please do so. They both deserve it. I want to thank everybody who was here tonight, whether you commented and stood against the wall, I should say, and was the wallflower. Big hello and thank you for watching TAP in replay. And please share, because as you can see, we have on magnificent guests doing great work, and we have these great TAP exclusives that happen here all the time. And so you're missing out if you're not sharing this with folks. So please share it. Big thank you to my moderators, who are magnificent, heroic, and should regularly be applauded for the work that they do. Thank you all. It's a selfless job, and somebody has to do it. And it is heroes like these folks, Roy and Seaver, and I think HB I saw here earlier. The great Texas conservative chick. She's here. She's not a mod, but she's here. I don't know if Ray was here tonight or not, but if he was, thank you. So thank you to all of the moderators. Let me pick out a few. Oh, and thank you to everyone who financially gifted tonight. It is very meaningful to us when you do that, and we deeply appreciate that service in that form to White Wellbeing and the work that we are doing for all of our people. Looks like Machiavellius has noticed your glowing, brilliant blue eyes, Mike. I hear that every time that Mike comes on, people write me afterward. They're like, that guy had the most beautiful eyes. Thank you for having him on. So, yes, I imagine that's not uncommon for Mike to hear. So we had, let me spotlight some folks before we get out. We had Heather was here. Carlisle was here over the course of the night. Misty was here. So was Paul over the course of the night. I think earlier also was Art Acrobats was here as well. So a big spotlight to all of you, and salute to all of you for being here tonight. It is always my great honor to serve with all of you in White Wellbeing, especially in times like these when, as I said, just 5 minutes from where I am right this very moment. And I thank you all who offered help again to me for the protection just of myself, my property. I think I'll be okay. I'm not going to be going out trying to instigate. I did have a little, maybe I'll share on Sunday, a little altercation with an anti-white white woman who decided she was going to be a traitor to us. And we had words, but maybe share that on Sunday. But it is a great honor to serve with you all, especially in these trying times. And it is in these kind of trying times that we have to come together even more. We have to focus on the love, because you're going to be hearing the endless litany of lies from the anti-white narrative. And it's going to make you want to pull your hair out of your head to turn on the TV and hear one channel to the next, no matter how supposedly conservative or patriotic that channel is, one channel to the next, the same message that this is all because of white people. This is all because of something you have to make amends for. It's all because of something that you have to suffer for. And it doesn't matter. You have to just try to be more and more anti-white, you think in your mind, but you realize there isn't enough anti-white. There isn't enough anti-white for all time that is going to cut it for the anti-whites. As long as you are around, they're going to be inflicting injury on you. Turn that off. Don't buy those newspapers anymore. Don't read those headlines. Don't listen to that radio. Don't watch those content producers. Don't turn on those television channels. Don't watch those movies anymore. That's the anti-white narrative. There is no defeating them in argumentation inside their narrative, because they are authoring it. It's like trying to win a game where they get to change the rules while you play. Join us. Go free. Read Prometheus Rising. Empower yourself psychologically and spiritually. And together, we can be the family that loves, renews, and gives life to a new people out of this deracinated race. We again can be Western men and women. I thank you all for being here. I love you, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.